See that Kalu Aja, a financial expert, is joining me here. Financial and economic expert is joining me, Kalu Aja. Good morning to you, Kalu, and welcome to the program.
Hello, Nancy. How are you doing today? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm well. Though I'm not seeing you, director, please can I see Kalu? Aha. Now, now I can see you, Kalu. Good to see you. Now, Kalu, we are
Yeah, same here.
talking. We are going to be speaking Tinubunomics, and I have an idea of what we're going to talk about, definitely. But I want you to explain in basic terms for people that will be seeing that on the bar. That's it. Tinubunomics, and people that will be like, what's Tinubunomics? For every
Mm.
president, we put no mix at the back. you know, explain perhaps in basic terms. Help my viewers understand. The scope of what we will discuss, or what Tinubunomics means. Then we'll take it from there.
Gotcha. I mean, so when you, like you actually said, you put the president, you put economics to explain really how they want to approach growth, the economic policies of the administration, and it's taken from the manifesto, then to the budget. So usually you'd have maybe two camps. You'd have the camp that wants to tax and spend, and then you also have a camp that wants to reduce taxes and then allow the private sector to then grow. So if you look at Tinubunomics, in terms of the manifesto now, before he became president, we're looking more of a tax and spend president, an expansionary balance sheet president, someone that wants to print a lot and spend a lot to grow the economy. We are taking that from the Hope Manifesto that we saw, where they wanted to decouple the benchmark price of crude oil from government spending. According to that manifesto, essentially they were making the argument that Nigeria is spending little because we've tagged our spending to the oil benchmark. So Tinubu in that proposal had said he wants to remove that benchmark and then spend, and I'm quoting, according to the needs or the objectives of government. So that would have translated to a government that would say print maybe 500 trillion and then employ a lot of youths to do full employment, right? And then try to get the economy back on consumption, full consumption in the short to medium term. That's what was on paper. The budget we see today does not reflect that which was on paper. I think we've gone back to the traditional benchmark driving the level of expenditure. So Tinubunomics for now seems to be still expansionary spending because the deficit is now 27, the budget is 27 trillion, driven mostly by deficits, driven mostly by borrowing. So it's still the same as we had the Buharinomics. Perhaps the only change is now that there's more private sector and more liberalism, i.e., the forex regime has been liberalized, and of course, the fuel subsidy has gone. So the private sector is going to be coming back in. That's the key difference with what we had in the last 8 years and what we're seeing initially under President Tinubu.
Carl, if I got you right, you're saying that this president will also still print money and that you are not seeing any difference between Tinubunomics and Buharinomics. Did I get your analysis right?
He promised to print more money because in his manifesto he says they are going to decouple the benchmark price from spending, which means that they would print more without reference to the income of dollars from the sale of crude oil, i.e., no benchmark pricing. That's what's in the paper. But the budget retains the benchmark. So they haven't done what they promised. They've gone back to the traditional, we have a benchmark, then we have crude oil earnings, which is sterilized, then we then get the how much that we would then flow to the budget. They've kept that part. They haven't done what they said in their Hope Manifesto. So that's where we are right now. So that's exactly what all other presidents have done. The difference is still that he wants to borrow a lot of money. The CBN governor has said they will do traditional CBS,
Central
traditional
banking.
central banking. So they might not print a lot, but the borrowing is still there. It's a lot of borrowing in this new budget, and there's also a lot of spending in this new budget. Perhaps they are going to now remove the subsidy and then spend that excess vis-a-vis unlike the other administration that kept the subsidy and then borrowed to still spend. That's the key difference with both administrations.
So I'm just thinking now, and I'm trying to tie this because for economics and economics is a bit tied. Perhaps where President Buhari has stopped, he printed a lot of money. The former central
Mm,
bank governor is still in Kuje, as we speak right now, are facing that. We also have seen reports that the former central bank governor, that there are allegations that if he meets the bail condition, they would also pick him up. That's also what we are getting. I just needed to put that there in terms of also what we are discussing, because if you're saying that the past administration, President Buharinomics borrowed the most, at least in history, in economic history. His budget was, I don't think his budget was perhaps expansionary. I'm trying to understand President Buhari's economic plan. His budget was a bit expansionary, but contractionary somehow, because this was a man
Correct.
that was printing money, telling the Central Bank of Nigeria what to do. Godwin Emefiele at that time was printing, no thanks to COVID, no thanks to crude oil price that came down to almost $0, $20 per barrel at a time. No thanks to the recession of 2016 that was humanly caused by us, you know. So how do you tie that, and how do you look at that administration with Tinubunomics now that has said it, the budget deficit, because the Minister of Finance and Atiku Bagudu, who is the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, have said, okay, our deficit this, for 2024 has been reduced from about 6-point-something% to about 3.88%, trying to convince us that there's something there. But I'm looking at, no, you people shouldn't do magic. That we understand what you guys are doing. I don't know if you're seeing what I'm saying. So I'm trying to compare a Buharinomics with an Emefiele, with a Tinubu, with a Cardoso.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, look at it this way. The Buhari and Emefiele, basically, I think they were running against themselves. Look at it this way. The Central Bank of Nigeria would print almost 23 trillion. And then the federal government of Nigeria retained subsidies. So all the forex that they got from the sale of crude oil simply went out the door to subsidies for PMS. Then when they then printed the Naira, they raised interest rates to fight the inflation that they themselves caused. They tried to do food inflation by funding farmers with these anchor programs. That didn't really work to bring down food price because of the insecurity. So they created inflation, then they fought inflation, and they had no forex revenues. The CBN governor himself said nothing has flowed in because all the forex revenues went to import PMS. They did capital controls, they retained subsidies. These two things killed the economy, these two singular things. With Tinubunomics, there is not going to be a lot of printing. What we're seeing now, the new CBN governor has said traditional central bank banking, but the savings from the exports of crude oil will then go now into that spending. We've seen them retain the humanitarian payments to the poor, and they've borrowed that money. But they have a lot of monies now in Naira flowing from the removal of subsidies from PMS. Even though that has been reinstated a bit, they still have a lot of leeway from that, and they are also taxing more. So the core difference is that there are still going to be lots of spending, but how are they funding that spending? Buhari funded his spending by printing. It looks like Tinubu is funding spending by the removal of subsidies and the increase of taxes on Nigerians. That's going to be the core difference, but still a lot of spending. The main thing he said, which was that he would simply print, that is Tinubu print without the oil benchmark. I haven't seen it in this budget, so I presume that maybe for this budget they won't do it. Maybe the next one, we are not sure. But for now, it's simply take the oil subsidies and spend, even at a deficit. So it's a deficit finance budget.
Explain what deficit financing means for our viewers in the very late term. It just came to my mind now because a lot of people may be thinking, what is Nancy and Kalu saying? These people are just too technical.
This means that we earn 100 naira, but we're going to spend 200 naira. The difference is 100 naira is going to be borrowed or printed, more or less. Yeah.
Okay, so I hope our viewers understand that. Now, if you take a look at the posture of Cardoso, and Tinubunomics also includes central banking, and Cardoso has said that it will be more traditional. It's going to go back to the orthodox way of central banking. So in a late time, let me explain it to our viewers. You know the Orthodox churches, the old ancient churches, like Catholic, Methodist, and Anglican. That's the way the central bank says it's going to go now, not Pentecostal way. Shout hallelujah. No, not that way. So Cardoso is saying, I'm going to go the orthodox way. With these alignments that President Tinubu is going to do, at least from his own fiscal year in 2024, how do you see that complementary role coming in? And will Cardoso succeed? Because Cardoso CBN will also be chasing the increase in money supply and the increase in currency circulation, which will also be against his mandate of price stability. I hope you understand you understand what I
I
mean.
think
So,
that's a great question, Nancy, because when I heard the Cardoso speech and what he wants to do inflation targeting. He wants to do less quote unquote noise. He wants to go back to just core central banking, which is price stability, inflation rate, maybe exchange rate stability, right? That's what he wants to do, what he was set out to do. So it's good on paper, and I think he's saying the right things. What the CBN needs now is confidence. A man that will come in and settle the waters. That's what the CBN needs right now. I still feel for a country like Nigeria, even though Emefiele got it wrong in maybe implementation, for a developing country like Nigeria, the central bank still has to practice a lot of development financing. So I still think that there's a role for the CBN to fund sectors that would not get commercial loans from the commercial market. There's still going to be a role for the central bank to say, we are going to subsidize or support the economy where it grows the economy or where it reduces the cost in the economy that will then increase productivity and create jobs. We can't throw that away, which means that somehow we've got to still finance agriculture and maybe power supply in the country. And only the CBN can give you that long-term, cheap loans that can do that. We can borrow it, but if the CBN is available, I think a bit of a cleaned up Emefiele approach to say, what are the critical sectors and how can we maybe do guarantees, maybe not loans, maybe guarantees, or subsidize some other issues, or combining more with the fiscal and the monetary to mean, say, a textile firm in Kaduna, for instance, and get cheaper generators, cheaper power, cheaper so energy to then grow and beat imports from China. We still need that. Even in the US, they still subsidize their private sector. Not the way we do it, but there's still a subsidy in terms of how they reduce interest rates when there's a recession coming. So we still have to do that bit in Nigeria. We simply can't go full-fledged private sector or only traditional central banking for now in Nigeria.
because Cardoso's posture is not looking that way, especially after his speech at the CIBN just a few days ago. But Kalu, hang on this thought, and this is about excess crude account. And why I'm asking this question is, according to the budget estimates for 2024 that has been given to us, $77.96, or is it some $7.36 now, has been put for the oil benchmark. If we're taking a look at oil prices, hovering around $80, $82, $85. We saw oil price even nearing $100 just some months ago. Do you see a thinking from this administration to save a bit, bearing in mind that before the last administration left, under the finance minister, what's her name now? Usman. Is it Usman? How can we just forget them in a jiffy? Anyway, under her leadership at that time, about $400,000 or so was said to be left in the ECA. So if oil price perhaps it's hovering around this, bearing on any unforeseen circumstances within now the next 3 months, let's say the first quarter of 2024, we'll answer. And let me also say this, that for the ECI, remember that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala then, as the coordinator of the Economy and Finance Minister, said that the ECA should be savings, and she kicked against governors. Then I remember Governor Amechi then kicked against her. I think it was perhaps Peter Obi then that said, among the governors, that said, no, come on, guys, let's save. And I also do know that between 2011 and 2014, about 2.9 trillion naira was shared from that ECA for governors. So I'm wondering what a President Tinubu would do with that if the ECA, if savings from this will, be moved to that ECA, or how do you also think they can legalize that ECA? Because I don't know if you remember, there were issues around, restructuring that ECA, as it were.
I think that's the first thing is that the ECA is not savings, right? It's not designed to save money. The whole idea is that when we export crude oil, the price fluctuates. So what Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala were trying to do was to sterilize or to have a price that we can plan with. So if oil price is whatever it is externally, if we pick a price, say $80, we only use $80 in the budget. That means that we can plan around $80. If the price goes to 90, it then goes to the ECA. So the ECA itself is still FARC in quote, just a memoranda post for FARC. It's not savings per se. If the funds, so when we set up a high ECA, we're essentially saying that we're going to have, should we say, less flows to the government. If the ECA is very, very low, if the benchmark price is very, very low, right, that means that there's going to be more revenues because almost all the oil you sell will flow to FARC because it's lower. So if you put it at $50, then almost all the crude oil revenues you sell will flow directly to FARC. There will be no deposits to ETA. If you put it very, very high, you are reducing the amount of revenues that will flow to the FARC because, of course, oil price will go up and down at that top band. So the idea is to give a consistent amount that we can plan with. The question now is, if it's not savings, what it is, it's FARC. If it's FARC, then of course it's owned by the federation, not by the federal government, which means that it must be shared the same way FARC is. So the question is now, can you get all the governors to agree to say, hey, we will keep this money and we'll spend it? Not so, because look at the first time we removed the fuel subsidy under Tinubu, we got 1 trillion. He only shared out 500 or so billion. The other 500 or so billion was kept in an infrastructure fund or so. Remember, it's still there. And we don't know what's going to happen to it now because the federal doesn't really tell the states what they are going to do. The federal looks at that money as their piggy bank that they can then use to do this infrastructure, that infrastructure. So the idea really is that they don't come together and agree and say, okay, this is what's going to happen to the ECA. And it's going to keep on being drawn down every time because the states really, legally, unfortunately, are correct. It's not savings. It has got to be shared out according to the constitution. I don't like it, but that's the fact of the matter. Even the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, the NSI, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, it's legal, but you want to ask yourself, is it constitutional? If you read our constitution, it says we have to take our monies and we have to share our monies. That's what's in our constitution. So those are the questions, that go to the it's
Kalu, did I hear you well to say that NSIA is illegal? Is that what I heard?
It's legal,
okay,
but not constitutional.
Okay, it's legal but not constitutional because, of course, the parliament, set up that body, and they do have different funds within the NSI. Now, Kalu, I want to ask this question because a lot of people are also a bit confused. Is there still fuel subsidy?
Of course there is. If your local price is fixed and the international price is fluctuating, then something is stabilizing it. And that something is going to be whoever is paying the subsidy. Where it's being paid from, we're not sure. We think it's NNPC, or we think it's a borrowing that NNPC is doing off balance sheet. But clearly there's a subsidy. Because the price locally is made up of the exchange rate and the price of crude oil. And both of these are fluctuating. So there is no way your retail pump price should be fixed if there's no subsidy.
So why do you think this administration is still telling Nigerians that there is no fuel subsidy? Because I'm assuming that it will really be hard for President Tinubu and the handlers of the economy to say that there's still fuel subsidy. But many of us within this game,
Yeah, the president was very clear. I think it was August 16th. He said there will be no new price hikes.
Yes.
It was very clear. Yeah. So once he said that statement, of course, they have to then execute his statement. So there's been no new price hikes. The question is, how is it being paid for? Eventually, we'll know how it's being paid for. But today, there's a subsidy. How much it is, where it's being paid for, we're not sure. But there's a subsidy.
I think that would be a program of another day that we can deconstruct it. I don't want us to get into that because it's a whole gamut of discussion, which I still have other things to ask you. Tinubunomics, President Tinubu's economy, do you think his economy is open for business? With all this, his trips, he's in Dubai now. He went to the US, he went to India. Where else again did he go to? He went to the UAE, now he's in Dubai.
France.
Yes.
I think for every CEO, you have to be out there. The CEO's job is sales. So he's the
Exactly.
president. He's got to go out and sell. I don't have
I
any.
like
I
that
don't
that you
fault the
said the
president.
CEO's job is sales. So for
So
MDs and chief executives of companies watching us, don't sit down in your office and be signing paper. Yeah.
correct. He has to go out. I have no problem with him going around. I have more problem with the how many people he's going around with, right? So if he stays out of the country for 10 years or 8 years and investments come in, nobody would mind. So that's so his first policies of removal of subsidy, float of the naira, have been well received by the market, not just in Nigeria but also internationally. He's reforming the economy was the word. They seem to have stumbled on the palliatives. They didn't bring them out as quickly as they should have, and they allowed political pressure to catch up with them and pull them back. So now you see a lot of reversals. They appoint someone, they pull the person back. They announce this policy, they pull the policy back. They do this tax, they pull it back because they're now worried about the politics, no longer the economics of it, because that's where they are right now. He needs to just be bold. Whatever he does, they're going to blame him. So let them nail him on a big cross. Be bold, spend, and do what you want to do. Then wait for 24 months and then say, this is what I've done. If you start to micromanage yourself now and say, I don't want to appoint this person, I don't want to do this spending because they will talk, it's not going to help you. So I would just say, have your plan and release that plan to the public and say, this is what we want to target. These are our big goals the next 24 months, and then do it and try to ignore the noise. There's going to be noise. Ignore it and move. That's just what I'm advising.
Do you think that President Tinubu's negotiating skills will bring enough foreign currency into the country in terms of value addition of what we're seeing right now? Nigerians are really crying as per COP28 delegation to Dubai. Government has come out to say, okay, it's 422 people, but nobody's also asking the question around government agencies under too. You know, when I saw that yesterday, I was like,
Yeah.
government, don't try and be smart with us. Some of us also get sense. Do you understand?
Yeah. See this administration has very, very bad understanding of optics. It's not just it started from when they had the long convoy of SUVs when they took away the fuel subsidies. Then they had the private jet issue with his son. Then they had the National Assembly saying they want to import cars and they have nowhere to cut revenues from. In terms of optics, these guys, this administration has failed completely. They don't seem to understand that you have to, even if you are pretending, you have to come out and give a human face or say, we understand the plight that you're going on to. The COP, everyone is in COP, even the IG of police is in COP. Doing what? It's not the number per se, but look at that is an import. When you are going to COP, you are importing. So all those guys in COP are taking dollars for Ester code. Even though they are non-government workers, they are still getting the dollars from Nigeria. Those dollars should have gone to the imports of other essential goods in Nigeria. So that's the point with it. We need to be more, should we say, more attuned to the mood of the country. This is a country where you just increase minimum wage to 35,000 naira a month. Don't even try to convert that to dollars. And then you're going and spending so and so in a hotel or going to COP. It's not jiving. So back to your question, Nigerians want someone that they can trust. Trust brings investment in. You know, before your election, we said it here, Nancy, that if you elect people, then if the foreign revenues or the remittances can flow back to Nigeria because people trust that you will do more with the funds. If people think they're going to spend their money, they won't bring the dollars back, or they won't bring it back through the CBN. They'll bring it back their own way because they don't trust the official lines or the official structure of government. So trust is very important. And right now, Nigerians feel this government doesn't know how to spend money, that they are spendthrifts. That's just the reality.
So do you think that the government is saying one thing, President Tinubu is saying one thing, and his actions are saying another? Because that's what I'm
I think
hearing from what you're saying.
I think the people around him are optic dead. The people around him, he's a businessman. The president is a businessman. I think he understands how to go to a president and say, "I need investment." He gets that, but the structure of governance around him, I think, don't are not attuned with him. The National Assembly, for one, is a big, big, big stumbling block to him. The optics that body gives off, it's totally off, to import cars and to defend cars. That listen, we're importing cars because roads are bad. It's laughable and it's also annoying. You want to build a house for 15 billion today, when 35,000, what did NLC ask for? 15 billion. Just a few days ago, they were trying to ask the Nigerian university to remit 40%. I get that was a law, that was a legal law passed. But why do you bring it up now? Does no one think that that would be challenged by the university that we're going to give you
Though the president
40%?
has said they shouldn't do that anymore.
Of course, it did because the optics don't look right.
All right, yeah.
Even though it is legal, they go with this, oh, it's legal, let's do it. No, you've got to look at things and say, even if it is legal, should we do it? And when should we do it? It's one thing doing it, but when are you doing it? And that's where I think they are failing in this communicating their intent in their actions and also on paper. There's just a disconnect somewhat.
President Tinubu is on the seat now about 6 months and 1 week, if I'm not mistaken. How long do you think, as Nigerians, we should give President Tinubu as honeymoon?
24 months.
24 months, isn't it? So from May 29 till May 29 of next year?
Yes, because whatever reforms needs time to kick in. But let me also say this. It's important the president, understands what are his number one, number two, and number three goals. The number one goal he has, number one, is to make sure crude oil is exported from Nigeria, about 2 million barrels a day. That's his number one goal.
But can
Because
he do that,
without
Kalu? We have an OPEC quota now. We can't do more
yeah,
than
but
OPEC has given us
he
now.
can do he
And
can do condensates, he can
yes,
do gas,
he can do
he can do
condensates.
all that.
And we've been
The
doing
point,
that
Nancy, to point is that we're at 1.3, 1.5
for,
today
and
because we
yeah.
have thieves in the Niger Delta that are breaking the pipes. We haven't stopped this stealing. So let's assume OPEC tomorrow says, okay, export 2 million barrels a day. We can't. That's my point. So he's
Yeah.
got to fix the Niger Delta first, then simultaneously fix the insecurity in the food growing areas. Because
Okay.
that's when you fix Niger Delta, you fix inflow of forex. When you fix insecurity, you fix inflation. Those are the two most important goals he has to fix. And he has to do them well within 24 months. I mean, he has to do them immediately. I'm not sure if the security is taking number one in the budget. Perhaps don't use that security budget to go after the bandits, clear them out of the food processing area so the food output can go up, so that food inflation comes down, and then we can stabilize prices in Nigeria and exchange rate. Without doing that, 24 months will come and go and nothing has happened. Exports, food inflation is number one and number two target in the next 24 months.
Let's go back to palliatives. Do you understand how the palliative structure is working now? Because some months ago, I think in August, the states were given cash of 2 billion naira. States were credited with 2 billion naira each. I spoke with a few governors, and they did tell me, they confirmed to me at the time that they've gotten their 2 billion naira cash for palliatives. Do you understand the structure vis-a-vis what the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation is doing? 25,000 naira monthly for 3 months now. That's 75,000 naira. Against what was said earlier on in the year about 8,000 naira, which many Nigerians kicked against, and Governor Soludo at that time was the leader of the committee at that time to say, okay, let's have a committee, let states come up with whatever they want to come up with. But it seems that we're not hearing anything again about palliatives.
Well, the initial plan, I'm not sure if an economist advised them. If you take money and go to the market and buy goods, the price of the goods go up. So when they were spending the money on palliative to buy goods locally, because that was instruction given, go to the local market and buy goods, but they wanted to drive consumption. They simply increased the price of the foodstuff. So the palliatives became, quote unquote, an inflation tax on the Nigerian population again. Because when you send that money into a market, say in Makodi or in say Abia, the price of rice is going to go up if you buy rice locally. So the palliatives in that sense did not work. In my own local government, 30 bags of rice were sent. 30 from my local government. And they said it's from a party guy or from someone else, but it was a mess. The way you do a palliative in a sense like Nigeria is to target what can immediately go around to everybody. I said it before, do zero VAT or do zero in cost of import of food. If you did that, that's going to be an instant salary increase to every Nigerian because food prices fall. And how do you pay for it? You then pay for it through the customs losing revenues. So instead of taking 5 billion to giving people to go buy food, we should have told the customs, allow food to come in for 1 month. 1 month, 30 days, you can bring in whatever food into Nigeria. That would have dropped food prices. Customs would have lost revenues, but that would have been the cost that we still used to send money to the States. It would have been the same thing. And everyone in Nigeria today would have gotten that palliative because the cost of food would have come down. And remember, the poorer folks spend more per capita on food than the richer folks. So we missed that opportunity. Humanitarian ministry, I'm not sure what those guys do from the time of Buhari. There's always this sharing out cash or sharing out money to poor people. I always know that anything that you do with cash is going to be lost. So maybe the plumbing of that department has to be fixed. Do NIN, do e-Naira, so that we can track it and see where it's going to. Attach it to other things like school enrollment, to immunization, so you're getting a bang for your buck. Not just calling people outside and giving them. It's not America. We're not giving people the dole or social security. You've got to have the best bang for your buck. 1 + 1 = 11. That's what we want to try to achieve. Not just giving people money because we have money from the World Bank to distribute. So we missed it a bit there. We can still get back to it, but that's just my take on that.
Let's go back a bit to President Tinubu's trips. And how successful do you think that President Tinubu will be in terms of attracting FDI vis-a-vis his policy initiatives that we are awaiting implementation and the concretization of those policies, having in mind that the FDIs that President Tinubu is eyeing is dependent on an enabling environment?
You just answered the question yourself, Nancy. I mean, FDIs are going to flow really from macroeconomic stability and policies. If inflation is 30%, you will struggle to get investors into Nigeria. If you have no power supply, that power supply in Nigeria is epileptic, people will struggle to come to Nigeria. I'm more looking forward to the tax policy being done by Mr. Oyedele also.
Okay, Oyedele, Taiwo Oyedele's committee.
Correct. His policies, if he can bring them out, is going to be a key driver to FDI and FPI in Nigeria. He's made some statements I don't like he wants to tax the remittances and all that. I'm not really sure. Maybe he can clarify that. But he is going to be the key driver to FDI and especially FPIs in Nigeria going forward. The president's job is to sell, but he has to sell a policy, and he needs those policies from the taxman and also from his ministries to sell. So when he goes to a conference in, say, Davos, he's competing with Mexico. He's competing with Thailand, Brazil. He's got to tell a guy in Nokia, this is why you should come to Nigeria and not go to Mexico. He's not competing with Ghana. He's competing with folks that are going to the markets of the US, in China, and in Europe. So he has to sell Nigeria and say, if you come to Nigeria, you pay no taxes. We're going to give you power supply. Nigeria has got lots of input here. We've got very, very cheap power. We've got an English-speaking young population, very, very cheap labor costs. We have ports, we have a good time zone, we have good weather. We can sell all this, but somehow we tend to stumble when it's time to sell this issue. So the president needs policies to sell. Him just being there will not attract FDI. He needs to say, if you come to Nigeria, we will give you this, so come and set up your company in Nigeria. And we have to start from selling to our own local folks. So instead of buying cars abroad, buy the local cars. Then the local car companies can go to the front of Nigeria and say, we have a contract with the Nigerian government to buy 100,000 cars. Hence, we want Toyota to come and partner with Nord or Innocent in Nigeria to deliver 100,000 cars. That's how it's done. Local guys, you focus on them, they bring in the foreigners.
That's another way, yes. Look, concentrate on the local guys. They bring in the foreigners as partners. Okay, yes. Let's talk about 3.76 growth outlook for 2024's budget, for Tinubu's budget. President Buhari had a 3.75% growth outlook for 2023. He fell short of expectation. For where we are now, we're doing about averagely 2.4%. The economy has not grown 3%. So where do you see that? Do you see that being achievable? That's when I want to put in a lot of questions before we go. We have just 5 minutes. What do you see for consumer demand, especially this festive season? Because incomes have been very depressed, Many Nigerians are living a very hard life now. Nigerians are dangerously living on credit right now. So where do you see consumer demand as Christmas is coming? Then the third question, Kalu, sorry, the third question. If you want to describe Tinubu's government, Tinubu's economy, that's Tinubunomics in one word, what will that be? So those three questions. Sorry.
Got you. Yeah. So the first one was on. I know you talked about spending.
Yes.
Consumer spending has been zero from 2022, according to Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. It's been flat. It's actually negative. So we've got to get that back up. So that's the key thing for the president, to get it back up. How do you get people to spend? You give them more income. You give them more income. The first one you asked about the growth rate.
Growth.
Growth 3% is laughable. We would easily get to 3%. We easily get to 4 or 5% easily. But the Nigerian population is growing at 3%. Nigeria used to grow at 6, 7, 8%. Just if in 2012, 2013, 6, 7, 8. We should not. America is a larger economy. They are growing faster than Nigeria. So we should grow at least faster than our population, which means faster than 4%, before we even start to say, okay, what are we even doing? So anything below 7% for Nigeria growth is really negative, because we have to grow faster to create jobs for the young folks out there. So 3%, 4% won't cut it. Last one word to describe Tinubu's government.
Yes, Tinubunomics. 6
I
months
would
and
just
1
say,
week.
if you had to say what we've seen in what has happened in the past one, I would say maybe hopeless. Because we
And
had
it's on a
hope,
renewed hope agenda.
yes, we had hope, and it's been hopeless for the last 6 months.
Wow.
Going forward, I would say I would be charitable. I would maybe put something in terms of tepid towards the optimism side of it. I would say I think they have some things that were breaking their favor. I'm a bit optimistic, very warmly optimistic. So I would say tepid. For the last 6 months, they've lost many opportunities in the last 6 months to not to grow the economy, to get the confidence of Nigerians behind them. I think they are worried too much about politics, and they have to forget the politics and focus on the economy. If the economy is good, everybody will support them.
But this president has been focusing on the economy. I've been saying it on the show for the past couple of months that he's been giving me topics to discuss every day, unlike President Buhari. Yes, because it's like, yes, Tinubu has been focused on the economy. Kalu, perhaps, are you a bit fair with that?
Now, the thing is that they are changing policies because of politics. Subsidy has come back because of politics. That's the point I'm making. That they have
it's a
to
difficult
ignore,
one, balancing social economy. It's
yes,
tough.
and we said it before. It's going to be painful. They're going to have painful reforms. When you say they're going to be painful reforms, you lead from the top. You also sacrifice. Your ministers sacrifice. Everybody sacrifices, and you implement these painful reforms. But you can't tell me it's going to be painful, and then you are in Brazil and your nurse is buying new cars. Then I won't support you.
Okay. My director says sign out, and I know she's a very, very stringent director, but 30 seconds. Let's take you back to 2011, 2012, where we had 6 to 7% growth. But then it was a jobless growth. What will be the difference? At that point, we were growing at 7, 8%. We still did not have jobs. So what can change? What will be the difference? What should President Tinubu do?
I think she should focus on the job creators, agriculture, trade, and agriculture trade. Focus on that. That's where you get the jobs from, right? We had jobs, but we're coming from a zero jobs to a new jobs. So we had that, quote unquote, the economy was growing faster than the population, but we had jobs. Yeah.
I think we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that, Kalu. Thank you very much. Always nice conversing with you. Let's do this again sometime soon. But if we don't see before the end of this year, Merry Christmas. Happy holiday in advance, and we'll see. Is it happy holidays? Already the holiday season. I will see you in 2024, God willing. So take care of yourself.
Amen. Thank you so much, Nancy. Appreciate you, and thank you so much.